purpose, conviction, drive, and belief that you are like doing what you should be doing. If you are starting a company and you're going to suffer the way you're going to suffer and work the hours that you're going to need to work, it is going to be very difficult to want to do that if you're building something that is like, not something that you're super passionate about. I'm Chris Brookhausen. I'm the founder and CEO of Strove. Strove is a digital health company, and we position ourselves as a digital operating system for preventive health. Particularly in the last few months, I kind of wanted to explore something that was a little bit more oriented to, or aligned rather, with like my own personal interests, which has always been health and sports and now well-being, etc. So I thought if I could marry that with technology, then you can have a huge impact or impact at scale.
If I knew how difficult this journey would be, I probably would have never started.
Yeah.
I'm glad I didn't know. So we spoke about delusionality. I'm glad I was a little bit delusional as well, because I wouldn't change it or trade it for anything else. Yeah.
I do think it's important to be a little bit delusional from time to time, otherwise you wouldn't have
absolutely
believed that you could do this thing in the first place.
Yeah, you would never start.
Yeah.
Talking about starting and and you moving into the space. So where did you start? So what did you do before this? You spoke about the...
Yeah, so basically
Chris, welcome to the pod.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
I've heard a lot about you.
Yeah.
We're gonna get into your business, but before that, I've also heard you're a competitive athlete.
I try to be. It's a good outlet from the stresses of work.
So is it because of stress?
No,
or is it something that you've been doing?
I've played sport my whole life.
Okay.
So first it was cricket until about 8 or 9 years old. I wanted to do that as a career. I literally asked my parents to throw a ball at me and I'd be holding a cricket bat for like hours a day, every single day. So fortunately, my parents entertained that. So I built a little bit of sort of hand-eye ball coordination when I was younger, and then transitioned that into tennis, became obsessed with that. I was thinking of like moving over to the US when I was 12 or 13 to go live it and train at an academy.
Oh, wow.
I then picked up golf, dropped tennis, got completely obsessed with golf. I mean, there's a pattern here I'm sure you'll pick up. So that was around 13 or 14. Played golf until I was 21. So I actually ended up going to the US to play college golf.
Oh, wow.
For a couple of years. So, and then stopped playing golf when I was like, when I say stopped playing like competitively at maybe 21, 22. Took up Ironman triathlons, started doing those until I was maybe, in fact, pretty much until I moved here. Because I started when I was maybe 23, 24. And then when I moved over to the UK when I was about 28 or 29, I went to do a race in Stafford. It's like an hour and a bit outside of London. And I'd been trying to train for this race in the middle of winter in the UK. So running is fine because you can put on shoes and a jacket and you can go outside. And the cold doesn't really affect you too much. But trying to get on a bike when it's -2 degrees outside, trying to go swim as well, at least get the motivation to go and swim it was super tough. So I was like, I love the running more out of those three sports. So I was like, running in London you'll see people running all over the place. It's a huge running community here. So I thought, okay, well, that's probably a sport I'd, want to get into next. So I'm taking up running and now I'm completely obsessed with that.
Yeah.
So like between sort of half marathons and marathons, those are kind of like the two main events that I do. So yeah, it's good fun.
There is perhaps maybe a correlation in all the sports that you do and the business that you have. But again, we're going to come to what really drove you to London? So you're from South Africa?
From South Africa.
Cape Town, I think, originally.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you can just walk me through that journey.
Sure. So I grew up in Cape Town. Well, I was actually born in Johannesburg.
Okay.
But I lived there until I was maybe 18 months old. So I lived there really, really young. Moved down to Cape Town. Grew up in Cape Town and then left when I was 18 to go to the US. So I went over to go and play golf at a college there in Arkansas. Don't know if you know. Arkansas. Yeah. That was a very interesting cultural experience.
Never been, but but I've heard of it.
Yeah. So I mean, they had a good golf program there, and there were actually a ton of South Africans at the university I went to, both in the golf team, but then also the university I was at had, I think, one of the best rugby teams in the country, and it was basically full of people from just outside of. There's an area called like there's Paul, and then sort of Stellenbosch area. I don't know if you've been.
I've been to Stellenbosch.
Yeah. So like in the surrounding area there, it's a hotbed for amazing rugby players. They happen to just all end up at the university in the middle of America where I was at. I think there was a coach there at the time who might have been South African, I think, and he was just recruiting people to come over. So so I lived in the US for a couple of years. Then I moved back to Cape Town. Finished my studies at the University of Cape Town, and then in my fourth year of uni, I did, like, when I say moved back, I went back to the US. Spent about 2 or 3 months. I was in Colorado. I actually went there to go and train for triathlon. So I went to go and live with a couple of the athletes there, and I trained with a whole bunch of professionals. It was an unbelievable experience. Have you been to Boulder?
No.
Yeah, so I was in Boulder for a couple months, and it's like it's basically just it's a place where a lot of endurance athletes go and congregate to go and train, because you at altitude. You got the mountains. You can cycle for 45 minutes up a pass, so you can get to 3,000 meters. So it's an incredible place to train. And so I was there for a bit. Was kind of toying with the idea of living there permanently. So that was part of the reason for wanting to go and check it out. Ended up going back to Cape Town, and then trying to figure out what to do next from a career perspective. Do I pursue the sport thing, or do I go and find a job, work in corporate, or just start my own thing? I ended up starting a business, which I'm sure we'll get to in a second. Ran that for a bit, and then just before COVID arrived, I actually started dating a girl based in she was based here, but we actually went to school together, and she came back to Cape Town during COVID. We started seeing each other, and then she had to go back to London. And I was like, okay, well, I'd kind of been thinking about moving overseas again, because, I don't know, I think, Cape Town is an amazing place, but the world obviously has so much to offer. So I thought, and I'd grown up there my whole life. So she was moving back. I kind of wanted to move. I was like, okay, well, let's just make this happen. So I ended up moving, it was August, September 2021. So I actually had to go, because South Africa was on the red list at the time.
Yeah.
So I had to go via Montenegro.
Oh, wow.
So I flew to Montenegro. I mean, I can't complain. Have you been?
No, I've not.
It's so beautiful there. Went and did snorkeling, spent like 10 days on the beach. Like, it was unbelievable. So it was about 10 days there, and then actually on the day after I left, Montenegro got put on the red list for the UK. So I missed it by a day. So I managed to get to the UK, and then had to spend 7 or 8 days quarantining at home for a bit. Such a weird time. It was like people would phone you to see, they would geolocate where you were based on, if you answered the call, and they would check if you were actually at home. It's like, this is such a weird experience.
That's crazy that you say this now. It's just like, oh, wow, we all collectively lived that together.
Yeah.
That's so crazy to think that you went through that.
But so that was 3.5 years ago now. Obviously, I do go back to Cape Town quite frequently for work, but I love this place, particularly from a sport perspective. Like the running side of things, like I've got an amazing group of guys that I train with. Some of them are unbelievable athletes, or a lot of them are unbelievable athletes. So it's also just like, there's the work piece, which is amazing, because London is this economic hub, and there's so much going on. There's capital markets are super deep. There's like a bunch of amazing tech companies here, amazing people, founders, CEOs, etc. So there's that part, which is incredible. But then on the sporting side as well, it's also like, it's unbelievable. The quality of, and the amount of quality athletes here. So it's been a lot of fun being here.
So if it wasn't, I mean, was there a strategy, or there was any types of due diligence that you did before coming to the country, or was it simply because your partner was moving here, so it's like, okay, so there's no choice.
Yeah.
Let's just roll with it. Hopefully it's great.
Yeah. I mean, so South Africa has I'm sure you probably heard of them. There's a chartered accountant profession.
Yeah.
And I went to university with a bunch of people so I was actually on that path. I did a finance and accounting degree. And so I studied with a lot of people who came over here to do audits. And they were here before me. So I'd kind of heard through them that they were having a good time and doing all these amazing things and traveling into Europe because it's only an hour and a half flight.
Yeah.
So I'd kind of sort of indirectly done the DD on this place through conversations with them. So I wasn't like going completely blind, if that makes sense. I would say I went in blind to the US the first time, to the university in Arkansas, because I had absolutely no idea what that was about. But again, I was like, it's going to be an amazing experience. Like, if I don't like it, I can always come home. So what is the risk, actually? You're also young. Like, I don't have a family. At least at the time, I didn't have a family. I mean, I've got a girlfriend now, but it's relatively low risk. So you can sort of just dive head first. You don't know what's going to come of an experience as also. Yeah, I think maybe if you have a family, it's a bit of a different story. But, at the time I didn't, so.
And how did you move here? Like, I mean, so you got another passport other than South African
So
passport?
my dad, his mom was, I should know this, I think she was born here.
Okay.
So she had a British passport.
Okay.
He got one through her.
Gotcha.
I couldn't get a British passport, but I could get an ancestry visa.
Uh-huh.
So an ancestry visa basically gives you like a right to work and come in and out of the country freely for 5 years.
Okay.
And then after those 5 years, if you've been here for a certain amount of time,
you can apply for
yeah,
ILR
yeah,
and then
yeah,
just move things forward
yeah,
by yourself then.
Exactly.
Okay.
So it was a pretty seamless process. Yeah, I mean, my dad had all the documents that he needed on his side. The tricky part was doing this in COVID, because that was when, it was, we sort of went into lockdown in March, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
2020.
Yeah. So was it actually 2020 that I moved over here?
Oh.
And I got that horribly wrong then. Yeah, no, it was 2020. You're right.
Oh, so it's been...
No, because I'm only coming on 4 years now.
Oh,
no, so it was
2021.
2021.
21.
Yeah. So I had started the process of getting everything together probably late 2020. Yeah, it was late 2020. So it was still a little bit of a mission, but I only ended up moving sort of the following year. That whole period is just such a blur, to be honest.
All of us, man. Yeah. It's for all of us.
Yeah.
I in the beginning 2 years, I was refusing to age. I was like, no, like I can't accept this because the world technically has stopped.
Yeah.
It was just a blur. And even now, like thinking back, like, wow, like I just said even earlier, like we all went through that. It was crazy times.
No, it was crazy. I just remember so I don't know what the lockdown situation was here in terms of the restrictions on you guys, but in South Africa, we were not allowed to leave our front door. You could not leave your front door. So my dad, I kept on asking, like, why are you making us, every time we would eat this is a random story, but I'm just going to tell it to you anyway. Every time we ate a piece of fruit, he was like, no, take this skin, like if it's an orange or a banana or whatever, and put it in this little compost heap.
Okay.
So we did this for years, like 3 or 4 years. I kept thinking, like, why are we doing this? Such a waste of time. And then COVID arrived and we were all locked in the house. He had this mountain of compost. This thing was like 3 or 4 feet high, maybe 4 or 5 feet wide. And he was like, okay, now we're going to use this and we're going to start a veggie garden in the house. And we've got like a biggish property in Cape Town. And so they were like, okay, we're gonna start growing watermelons, potatoes,
No way.
all these greens. And so for the first 3 weeks, our brothers and I were just like shoveling this compost, planting all these veggies. It was, we were reluctantly doing it, but eventually once the fruit started growing and like all the veggies started growing, it was worth it. But that's like one of the vivid memories I have of the beginning of COVID.
Your dad knew something we didn't.
Yeah, he knew something we didn't. 100%. Yeah, it was a very weird time. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, also moving to the UK. So you said you did your homework a little bit. Obviously, there was a trajectory that you're working towards, perhaps. But it never crossed your mind to go back to America instead of coming to the UK? I know your partner is in the equation now.
Yeah. I think a big part of also wanting to come to London specifically was because a lot of my friends were here.
Okay.
A lot of people I went to school with, a lot of people I went to uni with. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you probably cross paths with a bunch of South Africans. Like, there's a ton here. And so from that perspective, I was like, I kind of want to be, where my friends are.
Yeah.
The US is also, like, I love the US. I was in San Francisco last year. I was in New York. Like, I do go there fairly frequently. It's an amazing place, but the one thing that was problematic was the time zone difference, particularly with my family being in South Africa. When I was there in the first 2 occasions, it was difficult to keep in contact with them, and I'm very close with my family, so I didn't want to be in a situation where, like, you're struggling to get each other on a WhatsApp call because you're 8 hours behind or they're 8 hours ahead or whatever. So so that was also at least part of the reason. The UK or London is also just it's quite accessible from South Africa. So my family they left yesterday. They came and stayed with us for 3 and a bit weeks.
Oh, nice.
They came to come watch a couple of races that I did, and so they come over frequently as well. So I didn't want to, like, flying from Cape Town to New York is not nearly as, one, it's way more expensive, and then obviously, it's a bit more of a mission, particularly for people back home. So that was also a big part of it, I would say.
And time zone, you're right, huh? By the way, like in 1 hour, 2 hours when we change the clock, so it's nothing.
Yeah,
It's as if you're operating on the same time zone.
100%.
Even from a expanding, having your remote team. I mean, we've got a big team in South Africa as well.
Okay.
I mean, it's just so seamless for us to operate with people sitting in South Africa because the time zone just makes a huge difference.
100%.
Yeah.
I feel like if you're here, you can kind of work across the world.
Yeah.
So you can work with people in Oz, even though you might be having a 8 a.m. call, but, like, you can still work with people in Oz. If you can work with people in the US, you can work with people down south in South Africa. Whereas if let's say you're in Oz or in the US, it's very difficult, like, to try and coordinate times for meetings. Like, sometimes you can be, like, in the case of someone in the US trying to coordinate with someone in Oz, like, you could be almost an entire day apart from one another. So I find, like, London is a nice central hub, particularly from a time zone perspective which makes it easier to do business for sure.
Time zone and proximity as well. I mean, because it's centrally located, so also the travel becomes that much more relatively easy. And London being London, you have a lot of, even if it's long haul, you have a lot of direct flights as well.
Yeah, 100%.
So that strategic location obviously, makes a huge difference, especially when you're doing business.
Yeah, 100%. So do you find yourself going all around the world because you've got a team all around the world, like, in terms of traveling?
Yeah, I mean, we've got a team in South Africa, we've got a team in India, and I've got ties in Dubai, as you know. Like, I mean, my family's in Dubai. We have a few investors in Dubai as well.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, I would like to travel more.
Sure.
But it's just, it sounds good and it sounds relatively easy, but it's also not.
No, it's not.
But definitely, it is convenient. I mean, if I wanted, book a flight, few hours, direct flight, I'm somewhere. But working with different time zones, so, like, even India and South Africa for sure is the easiest. But even India, like, I mean, it's just a couple of hours, So it's relatively easier to work with people in India. And when I'm speaking to investors or even family in Dubai, again, it's just a couple of hours. It's not that much difference. It's not like New York. It's not like California. It's not like...
No, for sure. 100%. Do you guys do business in the US much at all?
So we've got customers organically. We did not really go after the US market because we actually tried to do that. This was about 2.5 years ago.
Okay.
But we quickly realized opening America is not like opening a new country. It's like opening a new world altogether. So we're like, okay, we took a pause, and, the strategy now is to focus only on the UK market.
Okay.
Become the market leaders here, and then work on expansion. And if that expansion is going to be America or is going to be Europe first, we'll see. But for the moment, the US is on pause. And I think if you look at the UK, like, I mean, it's a big enough market, really. Honestly, like, I know a lot of companies here. Their North Star is America. Like, how soon can we get to America? But if you look at, I mean, penetrating this market, like what you have, like your home ground.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a huge market. And then Europe is is huge as well,
100%.
Yes, there's language barriers,
Yeah.
but I think from a proximity, traveling, you can take a train and be in Paris, and I mean,
100%.
like an hour, 2 hours. Like, I mean, that proximity helps a lot as well. So yeah, we're not looking at the US, at least currently.
I've heard a few horror stories of companies trying to go over there too early and they just burn
Prematurely
so
as
much
well.
back.
Yeah. And I think, you need deeper pockets, you need boots on the ground.
You definitely need boots on
And
the ground, 100%.
not just your team members, in my personal opinion. I think really like the founding team members, founder, co-founder, especially now with the investors. I mean, if companies are raising money, investors also like to see, that the founders are vested, like, I mean, so, and I appreciate that. So depends on what your, what the goals of your business are. But I think that founding team members of co-founder, founder presence, I think, is super important, especially not just investors, but also for your team.
Sure.
Virtual call is good, but I mean, this in-person, conversation changes everything. Like, that's super important.
Yeah.
So I mean, we're not thinking about it currently. Yeah.
And your co-founders, yeah?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So we were also all over the place, but then, little by little, one person came, and the second, and the third, and then now we've got a team, like a solid base in the UK and India. And so India mostly predominantly is our tech team, and then South Africa we've got like the operations, marketing type of team members.
Why South Africa?
A good question, actually. It started off because of our therapist pool.
Okay.
So from the get-go, this is before people worked remotely, and this is pre-COVID. So since 2018, I thought, connecting with people with therapists and coaches who are more relatable, meaning if you're someone in London, but if you're from Cape Town, to be able to connect with a therapist who's from Cape Town, who shares your cultural background and speaks your language, that would make a bigger impact. So that was like the premise from the get-go. So the idea was to have like a global pool of therapists, and it just happened to be that we had therapists in South Africa, and then it just happened to be that one or two people who were from the therapist pool were really excited about working for Plum, internally for Plum, and we're like, okay, let's try this. This works. And
so it's kind of just grew organically.
It just grew organically.
Okay.
I mean, we had the one person and the second and the third, and the team just grew off the back of that. Yeah.
It's a good place to have a base from a team perspective.
Yeah. So, and you've got a team there as well. Yeah.
So most of our team is based in Cape Town.
Okay.
We do have a couple of people up in Johannesburg. But Cape Town is, it's where a lot of people want to be. And it is becoming almost like it is a bit of a tech hub now, I would say.
Yeah.
There's a ton of international engineers, non-South Africans, moving specifically to Cape Town because developer salaries they're starting to not go through the roof just yet, but you pay a lot more for a good engineer now than you did 3 or 4 years ago. I think part of the reason is international companies also, they're hiring people in Cape Town. They're happy to pay, 1.5x the cost of a typical salary that you would pay for an SA engineer. So you can move over there, live by the beach, like work remotely, get paid nicely. It's a good life. It's a good life.
Yeah.
But there's also a ton of really interesting companies that are being built between sort of Cape Town and then the Stellenbosch area as well. So Stellenbosch has the university there. There's a ton of really interesting research that comes out of there. There's a bunch of like biotech businesses, but like tech, but there's a lot of biotech as well. Like a few hardware businesses. There's some really interesting stuff happening out there. So it's attracting, outside of like the pay piece, it's also attracting people because of the opportunities from a work perspective. So it gives me a good excuse to
go back.
Yeah, I love going back. Like obviously I usually just go and stay with my family. I got two Great Danes, so I go and hang out with them. And our workers, like we've got an office in the city center, so it's a 25-minute drive from where I am.
Okay.
Then I get to go run in the mountains after work,
Nice.
and it is a really good life. Where are you guys based in? Do you have an office in Cape Town?
Oh, no. We have an office now recently in Johannesburg. So in the Sandton area. I've never been. I'm actually going to be there in the next 3 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm just gonna. It's my first time. I mean, I've been to Johannesburg before, where it was just passing. So we had a bigger team in Cape Town earlier, and then we did like an offsite, like in the bush, in Johannesburg. So I just passed by, so didn't really stay in Johannesburg.
Where was the offsite?
Good question. I don't really remember.
Okay.
It was somewhere in the bush. It was beautiful.
Yeah. Did you guys see some game?
We saw a lot of game. Yeah.
Amazing.
We saw a lot of game. It was just really, that was magical. That was magical. But this time around it's going to be more city center.
Sure.
More office. We're not really doing an offsite, but it's going to be, again, like there are a lot of people, like 90% of the people I haven't seen or met in person until now. So it'll be a great opportunity to actually see these people in person, which is fantastic.
For sure.
I don't know if it's going to be fantastic for them, but at least it's going to be fantastic for me. But yeah, so, and the plan is to maybe go a few days to Cape Town as well.
Okay.
Yeah. And then come back. So I'm going to be there for like a week, 10 days.
Okay.
Come back. Yeah.
Okay. Nice. Do you guys have customers in South Africa?
We don't have direct customers in South Africa, but we've got companies who are based here, who've got offices in South Africa. So we've got companies who have employees in South Africa, and we service them from that perspective. But direct clients, no.
Okay.
And again, it's coming back to that focus perspective.
No, for sure.
Like it's just okay. Like there's just so much to do here.
For sure.
Focus on one market, because again, it's just easy for us to think, oh, we've got a big team in South Africa.
Yeah.
It's just organically we can just open South Africa, but again, shifting focus.
Yeah.
There's only, as a founder also, you need to remind yourself you have limited resources, you've got limited time. So focus is very important, unfortunately. So focus is really important. I think it's very easy to get delusional sometimes as founders. So say, okay, there's limitation, just stop.
Yeah. I do think it's important to be a little bit delusional from time to time, otherwise you wouldn't have believed that you could do this thing in the first place.
Yeah, you would never start.
Yeah.
Talking about starting and and you moving into the space, so where did you start? So what did you do before this? You spoke about the
so basically throughout my uni career, so as I mentioned earlier, I was on the sort of chartered accountant path. I thought that was maybe the profession that I sort of wanted to go into. It was more just because the university I was at, there were a ton of people on that path, and the accounting department in particular was like incredibly run by amazing people. So I think there were a few things that sort of resulted in a lot of people within the university I was at in Cape Town sort of wanting to go down that path. So I sort of just followed suit. But after a few years, I just, particularly the accounting side, like I wasn't passionate about it at all. I definitely enjoyed more of like the ecos, the maths, the stats, like those kinds of courses. So by the time I got to fourth year, I was like, I honestly don't think I could take another 3 years and go and do articles at an audit firm. Not that there's anything wrong with that, just like me personally, I would not have enjoyed that. So I was trying to figure out, do I want to go into the corporate world? I'd done some internships at an asset management firm in Cape Town. So I thought maybe that was potentially a world I wanted to go into. But then I was sitting in a lecture in fourth year. It was being given by, I think it was our strategic thinking professor. We had a course called strategic thinking, and we had a professor in our second semester who was basically giving this talk on the funding gap in SMEs in South Africa in particular, and how that's like stifling growth from an economic perspective, particularly in South Africa. Obviously, this issue is broader beyond South African borders, but we're talking specifically about the South African markets. And the issue was that these businesses, they've sort of like the mom and pop stores, so they're critical to growth within an economy, because they are the backbone of the economy. They employ, obviously individually they employ a ton of people, but collectively they employ a ton of people. And these businesses were struggling. They were constantly in this sort of negative working cash flow cycle where they would purchase products to sell to their customers, and they would have, let's say, 30-day payment terms. but then they were getting payments from their customers in 45 days or 60 days. Now, these companies can't go to a bank and get bank debt often. That's usually, often that's not the case. It's a little bit better now. This was a good few years ago. And they're not a business that a VC or a private equity is going to go and fund. So they're constantly like funding the business themselves. They can't grow particularly fast as a result. So the idea was, how do we get these businesses to just have access to more working capital so that they can buy an extra chair to put in their salon, or purchase additional inventory so that they can increase sales, whatever the case may be. So basically end up building and we didn't have the money to provide to them. So we're like, okay, well, let's build a marketplace where we can connect investors, so institutional and individual investors, with these SMEs that are looking for working capital. So that was the idea. Built the product, and it was working. And these businesses were coming onto the platform. We would do a DD on them, so we would get access to, fortunately through the cloud accounting software, so Sage or Xero, it was very easy to just get read-only access to an audit of their financials and see how the business was doing. And if we felt comfortable, they would come onto the platform if they sort of passed all the checks, and then they could basically submit a working capital loan request against, let's say, an invoice that they've already sent out. So let's say you sell a product, and for £100, you invoice a customer for £100. They're only paying you in 30 days, but the business is done. You've made the sale.
Sure.
So what we would do is then they could take that invoice and use that to request a working capital loan against. And that would go into a marketplace. And then once we went into the marketplace, investors on the other side could come in and essentially browse a whole bunch of these and put 5K into one, 10K into another. There was essentially almost like a crowdfunding platform, basically. And so these SMEs would get access to the working capital to grow their businesses, and then the investors would get, and it's a credit-like return, or credit instrument-like return on their capital. And we would just take like a transaction fee for facilitating it. And the business was working. Like, funds were flowing through. These SMEs were paying all the working capital loans, so just working. And then COVID arrived, and the capital on the one side of the platform just not say completely, but it largely dried up, because people were like, we're just going to hold on to our money.
Right.
So that was tough. Fortunately, people were still utilizing the platform. There were no major existential issues, because we had a very small team. We could run super nimbly. And we didn't have a ton of overheads. It was there were only really 3 of us at the time. But throughout that, particularly in the last few months, I kind of wanted to explore something that was a little bit more oriented to, or aligned rather, with my own personal interests, which has always been health and sports and now wellbeing, etc. So I thought if I could marry that with technology, then you can have, huge impact, or impact at scale. And at least at the time, and I still do now, I thought it would be an amazing space to build something in. So that was kind of end of 2020. I left that previous startup, and then started building what we're building now. So the company's called Strove, and we launched the first version of the product in March 2021. The idea was, this was also partly as a result of what was going on with COVID, and I'm sure you were probably aware of this, the pressure that was being placed on employers to take care of their employees' health, was growing by the day. And at least I felt that, particularly when we started in the physical health space. So I thought there weren't a ton of companies that were doing physical health well in the workplace, getting people to just be more active and look after their physical health. So the idea was, okay, well, let's build something that just incentivizes employees within a company to be more physically active. So we built a very basic mobile app, very basic, a mobile app integrated with Strove, and we built a rewards marketplace into the platform. And the pitch was, sign up with us as a company. You get to offer us to your employees. We basically going to pay them in rewards for being active. They can sync all their exercise data from Strava, and they can earn points for doing so, and those points can be redeemed on rewards. So the concept was very simple, and people understood what we were trying to do. There is another company called Vitality in South Africa, which I'm sure you're familiar with. And a big part of their product is oriented around like this active rewards component or feature. And so when we were pitching this, they were like, these companies are, okay, well, how is this different to
Vitality?
Yeah. So that was a little bit difficult in the beginning. But fortunately, we had a few companies sign up and onboard their employees. And so we started gaining a little bit of momentum. We then quickly realized just through conversations with employers that they were looking for something that was like a little bit more comprehensive. So then we started focusing on like some of the stuff that you guys do. Like we brought on a mental health module. A lot of it was just like content focused in the beginning. So we had things like meditations and sleep stories. It was very like more like surface level stuff, but still obviously delivering value to end users. We brought in a teletherapy feature, and then we started bringing nutritional health. So now we kind of at this point, fast forward a few years now, a few years to today, where we're trying to build, let's say like an all-in-one, for lack of a better term, like an all-in-one health platform, where the product can almost be broken up into like 3 components. We have what we call like our core behavioral change platform, where that's essentially what we make available to employees. It's on a mobile app. And the idea is we want to help people move more and be more physically active, help them take care of their mental health, and help them make smart nutritional choices. So that's what we call almost like the core behavioral change platform. Then we have this new sort of dimension that we brought into the product, which is what we're calling targeted care. And the idea there is this has sort of come out. The idea was sort of born as a result of conversations we've been having with them, particularly with insurance companies, where we wanted to build something that was a little bit more, let's say, like health tech focused, where it's addressing specific chronic health conditions that people may suffer from. So an example of that might be, let's say someone has hypertension or someone is pre-diabetic. So what we can do through our platform now is we bring people onto this core platform. There's obviously a bunch of data that someone is creating from a health perspective on the individual profile. And then we can almost nudge them or suggest that they engage in a digital health program directly on the platform that is maybe focused on helping reduce their A1C levels if they are pre-diabetic, as an example. So those are the kinds of things that we're doing at the end user level. And then there's all I'm sure you guys do something similar. There's all the reporting insights that we provide to the employers and now also to insurers. So at a high level, that's kind of the product. When we first started, we were serving only corporate employers. So we would be focused on, or I'll say focus, like basically anyone that would pay us for access to the product. We were happy to bring them on board. We still are, obviously, to this day, because we want to try and help as many people as possible. But I say we predominantly focus a little bit more sort of on the enterprise side.
Okay.
So when I say enterprise, like mid-market to enterprise, we do have a bunch of SME or smaller businesses on our platform. But at least on the corporate employer side, sort of 200 employees and up. We do have, we've got a few banks and consulting businesses that have, they've got thousands of people. So we kind of support mid-market and enterprise. And then we've recently started venturing into the insurance space now. I think that's where, I think a lot of our growth will probably come from in the coming years. I think, obviously we're still going to be very much focused on the corporate employer side, but the insurance side of things is super interesting just because we can build a really comprehensive health profile on someone given the different verticals that we're playing in from a health perspective. So that data is very interesting to an insurer, and a lot of them are looking for ways to differentiate their product offering with like some kind of engagement or digital health tool. And so that's essentially where we can come in. So we kind of focus on both of those markets equally.
I'm going to come into all that because it's super interesting because obviously I'm very aligned in your journey and, where we started to where we've expanded and all the, how can I say, the challenges that we've faced. Perhaps maybe you'd be able to relate as well. And I'd be able to honestly just learn from you. But before we get into all that, how important do you think is purpose? Because, your previous business, I can't recall the names, but there are a few businesses which are pretty similar, where they create essentially like a marketplace. It's crowdfunding, but a marketplace. And then I think one of them is called Uncapped, if I'm not mistaken. And
I think there might be more equity.
Yeah. No, I think Uncapped.
There's one called Funding Circle.
Funding Circle. Yeah, there's Funding Circle. I think there's Uncapped. There's one more, which is also, I think, a British founder, but then moved to the US.
There's one called Lending Club. I don't know. That sounds familiar.
Yeah, there are quite a few.
And
they've become really large businesses now. I also appreciate that during COVID, yes, maybe the funding dried up, but also the businesses that you're talking about, because of the lockdown, I'm sure a lot of them were not even operational.
Sure.
And because of that, okay, so I mean, I've got the money. What do I fund? Like, they're not even operating.
Yeah.
So I think maybe that was another challenge. Okay.
100%.
Gotcha. But so purpose. I think alignment with your with what you, and you've spoken about. We started the pod by your entire, your journey with sports and like all the different. I think maybe the correlation was a ball and a bat. In all the things that you made. But yeah, so I think that alignment. And so just talk me through how important is the alignment, or is it not?
I would say it differs from person to person. I think for some people it's more important than for others, maybe, because maybe they find fulfillment in other areas of their life. Work is more of a means to an end, which is also perfectly fine. So I wouldn't say purpose needs to be the be-all and end-all for everyone. But I do think if you are starting a company and you're going to suffer the way you're going to suffer and work the hours that you're going to need to work, it is going to be very difficult to want to do that if you're building something that is like, not something that you're super passionate about. You don't need to like wake up every single day, get out of bed and be like the happiest person in the world for doing what you're doing, because that's not going to be the case anyway, no matter how much you love your job. But I think you need to have some level of purpose, conviction, drive that you and belief that you are like doing what you should be doing, and not doing something because starting a company is like perceived as being cool, or it's like a get rich quick scheme, because that's also definitely not the case.
No.
So I think it is super important, but I wouldn't say like it necessarily, if you aren't building a company and work is like something that you're doing to enable you to experience other things in your life, then maybe it's not as important. But if you're starting a company, 100%, you need to have, you need to believe in what you're doing. There needs to be a purpose behind it. Otherwise, it's just you will be, let's say you will be, but there's a high chance you'll probably be unhappy, I would say.
Yeah.
I don't know, would you agree?
Borderline miserable, maybe.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, it's so true. I think, because I mean, especially, building a company, like you rightly said, social media really romanticizes building a company, being a founder, but it's expectation versus reality.
Yeah.
I mean, the reality is way off.
So off.
That's way off. I mean, just before this pod also, we were talking about the highs and lows.
Yeah.
Many more lows than highs. And I think, and you underestimate not just how difficult it is, but also how long everything takes. Unless and until you don't have that alignment and that sense of purpose, I think it's going to be very difficult to pull through.
Yeah.
It's just so challenging.
Yeah.
I mean, for me personally, if I knew how difficult this journey would be, I probably would have never started.
Yeah.
I'm glad I didn't know. So we spoke about delusionality. I'm glad I was a little bit delusional as well, because I wouldn't change it or trade it for anything else. But I think that sense of purpose, I mean, you waking up, and again, it's not realistic to wake up happy every single day.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just life, I guess.
No, for sure.
But really having that sense of alignment is super important, because things get messy and dirty,
Mm.
way more than you ever
Yeah.
imagine it to be,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, it's definitely been a bit of a wake-up call, to be honest. And I think, like, you think, at least this has happened to me in the past, I've had to teach myself that you need to adopt a mindset where you think that the next thing that you do is going to unlock this sense of, like, tranquility and this feeling of freedom, and life is just going to be easier. But that just never seems to happen. And it's always around, like, signing a customer, or at least for me, like signing a customer or getting a funding raise over the line. You think, like, when you get to these things and you get them over the line, there's going to be this unlock. It's just never the case. So you almost need to kind of realize that it's just going to be difficult from day zero
Yeah.
until you eventually leave the company. You always need to find, like, a way to just enjoy it even when it's not great.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. And I think that's where it comes coming back to purpose. I think if you have that purpose, it's much easier to put yourself in that state of mind. Whereas if you didn't believe in what you're building, like, you will be miserable.
Yeah, and I think that's very important for people listening. I mean, especially people who are maybe just starting out or thinking to start out. I think really, if you're doing it from a place where, oh my God, like, I'm going to become a founder, I'm going to exit hundreds of millions and billions of dollars, and I'm going to become a billionaire, I think that is really far from the truth. A lot of the times founders are, even from a salary perspective, I mean, all that is just, and your equity is on paper anyway. Like, it doesn't really, mean anything. Up until you exit, if you exit.
Yeah.
That's a big question mark as well.
Yeah.
So really aligning yourself. So basically, we all have to work, if you can find this to be a job, and the job that you feel is the sense of purpose from a place where you're able to create value for yourself, for others around you. I think that is the focus.
No,
that should be the focus, and enjoying the journey. And you can, like you rightly said, you can only enjoy the journey if you innately feel that this is your purpose, or it makes you happy and you are actually creating value.
Yeah.
And also, I think it's important. You moved into now a new line of business where you think you can also add value. You also can feel the pain, and you feel that you can make the pain a little bit less painful and better for other people. It's only because you've gone through that journey as well.
Yeah.
You were into sports.
Yeah.
You understand the wins and the lows and highs and the lows of that space. And how can you now bring it to that person who perhaps does not share your your journey or your passion? So I think it's also important. And again, I mean, for people starting out, there are too many things that we're saying that, okay, so this has to align, this has to align, this has to align. But again, by no means, I don't think you're also advocating that. By no means I'm saying don't start a business. And by no means I'm also saying that, oh shit, all these align, all these boxes need to tick.
Yeah.
Starting is important. But I think having that little bit of sense of purpose, and I think sense of purpose can also change, over time, 100%. And that's also okay. But having that alignment, a little bit of alignment from the get-go, I think it's going to take you a long way.
Like, I'm sure people have probably heard the advice, like, don't just start a company for the sake of starting a company, or start a company because you want to make a lot of money. Like, that's, people have heard that from, time and time again. I think, a lot of the time you can start something without it necessarily even needing to be a business.
Yeah.
Like, your podcast is a perfect example. You start something just because you want, like, an outlet, and it's like a passion. You can build a community around it, and then, like, I'm sure you probably follow those guys. What is the name of the podcast? The All In podcast with, so there's that Chamath.
Oh yeah. I forget.
That's like a proper business. Now you've seen they do these, not like conferences. I can't remember what the term is, but they get like hundreds of people to come. They turn into like this whole media business, and that's just like started as a result of 4 guys just wanting to have a conversation.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, like, if you're just open to opportunities, you don't necessarily need to go and seek an idea to start. You can also things can just sort of happen organically, which is amazing. So
intent is super important. I strongly believe if you do something with the right intention, you do attract the right people in the right circumstances.
100%.
I think, and that intent also, alignment and the purpose, is that everything is just correlated.
Yeah.
But taking that action with that intent, and then just trust in the process.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, like, some people are also more, there's going to be people that are more entrepreneurial than others. And I think if you do feel like you have that tendency, I think for the most part, I think you should at some point try and find something that will give you purpose and give you the motivation to get out of bed and execute on it, because I think a lot of people it is scary, like starting something by yourself a lot of the time. So I think if you do feel like you are entrepreneurial, and that could come in many different forms, I think obviously don't force it and don't start a company for the sake of just starting a company and wanting to make money. But I think if you do have that itch, whether it's now or in 10 years' time, like you should try and find something to do. Because yeah, like I could, like personally, I would struggle to see myself working in like a big corporate environment, to be honest. And I think if I didn't start this, like I would have probably tried to find something else.
Yeah.
Just because, yeah, if you do have that inner drive to want to do your own thing, be your own boss, and have like the creative outlets, which is kind of what a startup is. You're coming up with these ideas all the time. You get to materialize them into something real in the real world, which is pretty incredible. I think if you have those qualities, I'm not saying like go and look for an idea today, but just try and be open-minded to the fact that that is probably a path that you should at least consider taking, in my opinion.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, choosing your hard, essentially, because I mean, everything is hard. Is really, I mean, if you have that itch, because that value creation that can come off the back of it could be something that you never even imagined. And I think that is important. Yeah. So I think maybe we're saying we're saying how difficult it is.
Yeah.
But we're also saying how amazing it is. So I mean, it's really, I mean, not everything is for everyone.
Yeah.
But if you feel you have that itch, 100%, if not today, you should. I mean, you should not. I think it's very important for just us. Like, I mean, you should not, end this life space with that question: what if? Oh shit! What if I just actually started? I think that what if itch needs to be taken care of. And I think it's also very interesting how this space is, the whole founder space. Everybody just wants to help.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think when you take that first step, you do attract the right people, and there's people. The whole community is so supportive.
100%.
Everybody just wants to help because everybody has gone through it. They feel the pain, and people just like to help.
Yeah,
which is also so amazing in this space.
What were you doing before your current business?
So
before Plum?
I actually started my first business when I was 17.
Okay.
Yeah,
So you've been on.
And then dabbled into many different businesses. I did a corporate stint as well for about 4.5 years.
Okay.
I was working for a large property developer in Dubai.
Okay.
But then I saw, oh shit, the property sector is amazing, and then I left that and then started my own real estate company.
Okay.
Off the back of that as well.
Doing.
So renting, leasing, buying, selling.
Okay.
I dabbled into contracting slightly as well.
Okay.
But then started my career from online gaming. So when I was 17, I played a lot of games, like computer games, and I just made a business out of that.
Amazing.
And then digital marketing, food and beverage. I had a few restaurants. Real estate in Dubai. Yeah, everything in Dubai.
Wow. Proper entrepreneur.
Yeah. I dabbled into real estate, and then now the mental health space, and now expanded into the whole HRIS space as well.
Would you say that the tech space has got you the most excited out of all?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah,
100%. I mean, I tried to get into tech space many years ago as well. Actually, when I was, even before the first online gaming space, made like a website where people can explore to buy and there are things to do, and never launched.
Okay.
It that was the idea, started building, but never launched. We're too young. I think we're like 13, 14.
Okay.
And then did like a food delivery site, kind of like your Deliveroo, but again, back in the days, I just kind of took off, but then didn't really know what the hell I was doing. So always wanted to be in the tech space. Always. I was just so excited. I think I was excited about the fact where you could, like, potentially the world becomes your oyster.
For sure.
I mean, you could be sitting in one location and cater to the whole world. I think that was just magic. I mean, so, and the only enabler was technology. Only enabler. I mean, and the internet was so powerful.
Yeah.
So always wanted to do something in the space, and I mean, now it just happens to be mental health and HRIS.
Yeah. And so what does the future look for you guys?
So we are now we're focusing into, I mean, really trying to transform the way we look at again, I mean, maybe something similar to you guys, but the way you look at your people. So mental health for us has been, core to everything that we do. I have a personal story on mental health. I mean, I had suicidal thoughts at one point. I came out of that headspace. My mom is a therapist, and I think I was just fortunate that I had her experience. And then I just worked on my own mental health and came out of it, and then really moved into the whole mental health space. But then now I just wanted to do something more. I think COVID also COVID was great for us from a perspective where the conversation around mental health has just exploded and continues to rise, But last 2-3 years, as we all know, I mean, there has been a downturn in the economy globally, and people started looking at mental health services somehow like a good to have and not a must have, which for me was quite sad.
Yeah.
But then we're like, okay, I also understood the business element to it. And if you have only so much money to, pay salaries, what do you do? Benefits have to be cut. Are the first thing that are cut. So okay, let's move into a must-have space. And what we've done is essentially subsidize mental health. So now you can buy our HRIS platform and you don't have to think about budget when it comes to mental health. Now, but the expansion to that is also articulating the return on investment when it comes to mental health spend. It became very difficult because we were not controlling that type of data, like absence data and all those elements. And then when you look at mental health as well, there is the therapy and coaching element, but a lot of the mental health aspect or negative aspect is directly correlated to, let's say, financial well-being and how you're performing in the company, and if you're getting promoted, how much money you're earning, so on and so forth. So LMS, so our LMS side of things, which is the L&D, learning and development. So we want to try and bring all that together.
Okay.
So yes, you see a therapist, but then, it shouldn't be only from a reactive place.
Yeah.
How can we be proactive, help you upskill, help you, do better on your KPIs and your quarterly reviews so that you're getting promoted and earning more money. And that, again, is impacting your mental health in a positive way. So making it like that whole 360 kind of solution.
Okay.
And then whilst doing that, focusing on helping employees thrive, but giving all the other bells and whistles and, for the HR team, from payroll to the platform to time in, turn out, and all that surveys. And so all that jazz as well.
Okay. No, I mean, it makes complete sense. It is an interesting space. Like you were saying earlier, there's a couple large companies that operates in and around this
highly competitive, but I think there are also a lot of incumbents in the market, which is great. I think our agility, I mean, for any startup, I think you can appreciate as well, speed is our superpower.
Yeah.
So the smaller you are, the more faster you're able to move. So I think what we're winning now currently is that speed. I mean, we've just become a yes company.
Yeah.
So anything you need, yes, we'll do it.
Yeah.
I think in the initial days, you have to be a yes company to be able to grow, and then we have to become a no company to be able to grow.
For sure.
So we're in the yes company stage, which is obviously working in our favor. We'll see when we move into the no company, but today we're a yes company, which is just helping us, sign those contracts really, really quickly.
I'm sure you probably it was a bit off topic, but I'm sure you probably read about what happened with it was a deal and Rippling.
Oh yeah. Recently, I mean, a couple of weeks ago, right? It was in the papers, in the press. I think is it Rippling suing Deal, or
something
I think
like
the other way around?
Something like that.
Yeah.
So have you guys seen any impact of that at all, or are they too sort of far removed?
Oh no, I think no. I think the space that we play in, no. I mean, predominantly those two are obviously they have presence in the UK as well, but predominantly US large enterprise. We're focused in the UK, as I mentioned before as well.
Yeah,
and so we started with micro small companies, and now we've moved into mid market.
Okay.
So not so much of an effect, and plus we're not EOR yet.
Okay.
There's an aspiration. There's an aspiration.
Okay.
We're still testing the waters again from a place where how can, like yourselves, become that one-stop shop for the HR departments. And I think that's where essentially I believe where the market is moving into. Like people just want that convenience. I don't want to be using 15 different platforms just to do that one thing.
Very nice.
So a lot of people, I think, used to cringe a couple of years ago, all in one, or don't tell me all in one. I need laser focused, 15 different platforms. I think the world has changed. I think AI has just changed the whole conversation altogether. I would just rather have ChatGPT do everything in my life, everything, if that was a possibility.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not today, maybe it'll be tomorrow, but I think convenience aspect more and more, people just want convenience.
Are you guys using AI on the product?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Everything. I think it would be a sin
Yeah.
for anyone.
Not from a
not
development
to-
perspective, but in terms of actual functionality that it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Maybe again, it would be a sin not to use it even in your product. Yeah, I mean, from ground up, everything has just been AI. AI has never been an afterthought simply because we were also fortunate. We started building the platform just a year and a half ago, the whole HRS platform, year and a half ago, where ChatGPT, as we know, 2 years ago just blew up and just changed the whole scene from a developer perspective as well. So, I mean, we were just fortunate to be able to build everything. Like AI has been in the core of every element that we've touched.
Amazing.
It wasn't that we had a product built 10 years ago and now there's a Frankenstein approach. We're trying to bring in AI for the sake of bringing AI. Yeah, it was just a part of the DNA.
Okay.
Everything is just so new. Are you guys bringing in AI as well?
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously from a development perspective, just in terms of accelerating the software development side of things, but from a product perspective, it's like a bunch of interesting things. We're still in the relatively early stages, but there's a few exciting things that are coming in the next couple of weeks. I think for us, because we're able to build like a pretty comprehensive, like a comprehensive profile on an individual user from a health perspective, and then also broadly at a company level, because we are, like, for example, we've got integrations to like 15 or 16 different wearable devices. We can pull, obviously with users' permissions, we can pull, upwards of like 250 data points from those different wearables collectively. So we can do some really interesting things in terms of from a data perspective, in terms of the insights that we can generate. And you can imagine with that amount of data, using AI can generate all kinds of really interesting signals and insights and recommendations. So that's been a sort of a focus of ours for the last little while, both at a end user level, so providing a little bit more of a personalized experience for an employee or for an insurance policy member, but then also at a company level. So in the case of, let's say, an employer or an insurer, we don't just necessarily want to provide them with static data that they need to then draw their own conclusions from. Obviously, we can provide that, but at the same time, we can provide them with what we think they should potentially be doing. So we call them like signals and insights. So basically, like an example would be if there's a cohort of people within an organization where there's been, let's say, a random example, like a 2 standard deviation move in the amount of physical activity that they've been doing over, let's say, an 8-week rolling average. At this point in time, we can generate a signal off the back of that. And then we use an LLM and generate an insight. So the signal is like there's been this downtick, and then the insight being this is what's happened. It potentially correlates with the fact that this particular cohort of employees are also showing, per the surveys in the app, that their burnout indicator is trending upwards. So there's an uptick in burnout. There's a downtick in the amount of physical activity. Here's the insight off the back of that, and potentially like what you should be doing as an employer, or let's say in the case of an insurer. So those are the kinds of things that we are doing, just making it a little bit more intelligent, for lack of a better term, but both to benefit the end user, obviously, as well as the employer or the insurer. So there's a ton of exciting stuff that we're working on. Obviously, with all the tooling and all the APIs that you can integrate with, like it's taken the development cycle of these things and just compressed it down to you can get a POC out in 3 weeks versus you need to hire a senior AI engineer who's going to cost you a ridiculous amount of money, and it's going to take 6 months to build something out. So yeah, I mean the world is changing so quickly, and there's so much stuff that you need to try and stay ahead of, but also at the same time it's super exciting because what you can build and the value that you can bring to an end user, and to, in our case, to the corporate or to the insurers, you can bring a ton of value to them as well. So no, it's super exciting.
Talking about value, do companies actually see the value? Because I mean, so we kind of had similar experience, and I think it was very difficult for us to help them focus on the value generation, versus just the cost. We're just cost cutting at this point in time. So how's your experience been?
I would say it's been mixed. There's some that are, I'm talking specifically on the corporate employer side now, because the insurer side is a different conversation.
Right.
But I'll talk to the corporate employer side. There'll be people that we speak to who intrinsically understand the benefit of what we're doing, and we don't even really need to provide them with a ton of data, because they understand that bringing this into their employee value proposition is going to be beneficial for them. So you get like that group of people. Then you get the others who are like sort of on the fence a little bit. And we've been able to persuade them that having our product deployed is a good idea, because we can show things like, because we're tracking a whole bunch of physical health data, we can actually show like a tangible improvement in one metric, whether let's say it's someone's weight as an example. So we can show, if they're tracking that data on our platform, we can show a marked change in weight loss across a cohort of employees within an organization. So anyone, that understands health even partially will understand the benefits that that's going to bring to that employee base, or at least that cohort, and then the benefit to the company. So there's those people on the fence, we can convince them with that kind of data. And then there's others who just look at the cost. And they're a lot harder to convince. So what we've done there is, okay, well, just bring 20, 30 people on board the platform for free for 3 or 4 weeks.
Gotcha.
Try the product, see if it brings value. We can then work with you to build a little bit of a business case. And then you can take that to your board if you want to try and get approval for this. So I'd say it's mixed. As we've gotten more mature, it's obviously become easier to sell, and we've got more data points to back up the claims that we're making in terms of the benefit they can bring to a company. But it's always going to be a challenge, at least in some instances. From an insurer's perspective, so a lot of the conversations there's like kind of two parts. One is improving their member value proposition by bringing in a platform like ours. So it's creating an additional touch point for our customer. It's bringing an additional value or benefit to them beyond just taking a policy out from their website. And it gives them access to rewards, content. They could track all their data. So they're improving the end member value proposition. But then there's also this part around improving member health. And you can understand for an insurer, they want to have a healthier base,
100%.
cost them less, etc. So that's essentially where we come in. Those conversations are often more challenging, because to get approval on a 100,000 person member base rollout versus a 50-person corporate employer rollout, obviously is like completely different challenges. But they like I said, they each have their own kinds of challenges. But on the insurer side, there's less of the conversation around, is this actually going to be beneficial, because they kind of know already. We just have to show that we have a really good product,
Right.
and we can deliver on the outcomes that we are claiming. And there's less of a conversation around, is this actually something that is even worthwhile, because they kind of understand intrinsically then, and then they know that it is valuable and would be valuable to their employees, to their members at least. So
I mean, we spoke about Vitality, but the likes of Vitality obviously have helped with that education piece already, and they've proved value
Yeah,
time
100%.
and time. So I think that obviously works in your favor as well.
Yeah, 100%. So the Vitality platform is massive in South Africa. In South Africa in particular, they've done incredibly well. And they've taken that and they've sort of replicated it across the world. So they'll partner with like John Hancock, which is an insurer, I think, in Europe, if I remember correctly. There's Generali, there's a few different insurers scattered around the world, both on the life and health side. So they sort of partner with both life insurance companies as well as health insurance companies. And they take this product and they deploy it in a similar way to the conversations that we're having now. So the insurers that we're speaking to and that we're doing some work with, they've seen that model and the impact that it can have on member health, on even doing things like lowering lapse rates. So, making sure that people come back and actually renew their policies with you at the end of every year. Having a product like that deployed can actually help with that. So you're improving member health, plus you're lowering lapse rates, your economics are just improving.
Right.
So, like you said, the idea has been validated. And And I'm just hoping that we build a better product to kind of help the other insurance companies. So yeah.
I think another challenge I feel, I don't know what's your thought around that or your experience, is that your data, the data that you are able to show the customer or the insurer or the corporate is only as good as the input.
Sure.
So like people actually using using the platform and actually feeding in that data, because I mean it starts from there.
For sure.
So how do you motivate people? I know there's a motivation of you get the discounts of and the perks, but is that a good enough motivator, or is there any is that be done so many times and people really see value in that, or is there somehow another you see that as a challenge and you're trying to find another way to entice people to?
Yeah. So we almost find ourselves trying to build like two businesses. The one is like a consumer product.
Like chicken and egg situation in a way. Yeah.
It's like building a consumer app, and then we're building it's like a data product. For the employer or for the insurer. And so a lot of our time is spent on the end user experience. So that's where the majority of our time is spent. As the team grows, we're able to invest more and more time on the other side of the platform. But I think for us, the end user experience is part of the data inputs. I should have mentioned that earlier. Sorry. We do have the ability to like connect into other third-party data sets. So for example, if you spoke about, it might be actually interesting to have a conversation with you guys about this at some point. We do hook into some HRIS systems. So like
nice.
we've only done these for enterprise customers though at the moment. But as we build this out, like it's going to become more core to our product offering and value prop. So we can hook into like a Workday, as an example.
That makes sense.
And we can pull data from a Workday system and then augment it with the data that we have on our platform. So for example, and I think you mentioned this earlier around sort of like absenteeism data and sick leave data. So we can like take that data from, let's say, a Workday instance, bring it into our platform, map that against all the different data points that we have that are being created at end user level and that we are reporting on to a company. And then they can use that and this is also where the AI becomes really interesting, is because we have multiple different data streams now. And so you might be able to do something where I spoke about the signal generation piece. So we could generate a signal that could say something like, based on the data that we're getting from your Workday instance, we can see that there's an uptick in absenteeism over the last 3 months, and it could be correlated with the fact that there's your sleep score within your organization is starting to trend negatively. That's also correlated with a downtick in physical activity, or even something as basic as like the amount of steps that people are doing. It could be any data point really. And then we can surface those insights and then provide them to the company. So from a data input perspective, we can get data from third-party systems, but then obviously the main data input is at the end user level on the mobile app. So I think for us, how we get people to want to use the product is a couple different things that we do. I think because we're building in different verticals and we're consolidating it under one, there's often something for someone. So we find that like people will use 20% of our product, but that 20% differs from person to person. So someone might be more interested in the nutritional health side. And so, for example, we built an AI meal scanning feature. So you're sitting down for dinner, take a picture of your meal. It's going to give you real-time feedback in terms of the macro breakdown, what you should potentially do to improve that meal, that kind of stuff. So we're collecting a whole bunch of nutritional health data on that particular individual. Then someone might be more interested in like the social aspects of the product, which is everything from like the leaderboards to company challenges to, we brought a lot of what Strava does from a social perspective and brought it into our platform, or taken rather. And so particularly like the competitive C-suite individual in a corporate, they like that part of the product. So they'll utilize mostly, that set of features, along with like bringing some of their health data into their profile. So I think because we're building in a few different verticals, it does help from an engagement perspective and actually getting that data in the first place. And I think once we get so we roll out our platform in a company, we don't, and I think similar to you guys, like we see sort of 60 to 70% utilization of the product in any given company that we're at, like at a minimum. There are obviously one or two outliers where it's slightly lower than that, but on average, that's kind of what we see. And I think it's a combination of we talk from a client success perspective, so we run like a whole bunch of onboarding, like campaigns and strategies, like we host activation days. There's a bunch of things we do outside the platform to make sure that we're keeping people as engaged as possible. And then we do basic things like, we'll run a company-wide challenge. So a steps challenge or like a physical health challenge where it will be, we can make it like cross departments. So you'll get every department in the company that participates in this challenge. So it's almost like this social pressure that's being placed on people. So that also helps bring people into the platform in a good way, obviously. So I'd say it's like a combination of building in different verticals, having like a solid CS and account management strategy, and then like some of the social stuff that we've built into the product that does help. So I'd say it's probably like a blend of all those three.
Yeah. Because I mean, everything said and done, if you don't have that uptake, or if you're not able to entice people on that uptake, because people also intrinsically, like, we also become very lazy. It's like, okay, yeah, this is great. And also I think the perceived value when you're not paying for something,
for sure,
you just don't value it. So I think it's one of those. And the reason I ask you this question is because obviously we're in a kind of similar space, at least we were. So I think that uptake was a super important aspect that used to keep me up all night as well. It's like, oh shit, how do you drive that uptake? That engagement is super important, because ultimately that again boils down to the ROI that HR needs to then articulate to the CEO or the board or whatever. But it's great. What you guys, I think, doing a fantastic. Definitely, I think we should talk
100%.
Anyway from a HR perspective, because I can already see the correlation. And that could be like your POC with us as well. And then hopefully you can just embed with other HR platforms as well.
100%.
Because because when you do that, you're also not asking the end user to do anything. Like, because data is there, you're just feeding in that data automatically somehow. What's the plan? What's the next 3 years looking like?
It's I think a combination of things. Maybe before I jump into them, I think like trying to figure out what things are going to look like in 3 years. I've tried to do that in the past, and it's just like things never materialize the way you think they're going to, for better or for worse. So, but I'll give you like a sort of a rough overview of where we're heading. So I think up until sort of 6 months ago, predominantly focused on selling to corporate employers, mid-market, enterprise. This whole insurance world is sort of open up for us now. So I think it is a space that we are going to really push into over the next little while. I think it's just like there's a ton of opportunity around the world, not just in sort of specific locations. So I think for us, trying to grow into that space as much as possible. I'm in like an incredibly impatient person, so the quicker we grow, the better, and we're never really growing fast enough. So I'd say, looking like 3 years ahead, big focus on that, working with insurance companies hopefully around the world. I think from a team perspective, like I definitely don't value just having a big team for the sake of having a big team. Like I want to make sure that everyone in the company that we're working with, people that I want to be working with and that I'm excited to work with every day. So I'd say, in 3 years' time, want to have, whether it's 30 people, 100 people, 1,000 people, it doesn't really matter to me. It's more just like having a culture that is amazing to work within, and have people that I work with that I love spending time with. So fortunately, we've got that set up now, and the goal is to try and keep that as we sort of scale up. And then, obviously, like the mission of the business ultimately, while we're selling to an employer and we're selling to an insurer, like our goal is we want to make people healthier and live healthier lives and longer lives. And we've had recently, a couple months ago, we had a guy from one of our clients come in and join one of our town halls. This guy was incredibly unhealthy, like overweight. I think he was diabetic or pre-diabetic. And he came onto our platform, and like within 2 months, I would say 2 months, 2.5 months, he went from doing zero exercise, like absolutely nothing, could not ride his bike for a couple of kilometers without needing to take a breath. He's now like entered into a 100K mountain bike race.
Wow.
So he's like completely transformed his life. And we were speaking to him just over a video call. It was a few months back, and I said to one of the guys on our team, I was like, we have to get him into a meet with the rest of the team, because sometimes things just get super busy. You don't actually understand the impact, or you don't realize the impact that you're having. I'm sure you guys feel the same way. So it's like, get this guy, bring him onto the call, and let him tell us about what has just happened, because just by doing that, potentially added like 10 years onto his life.
Wow.
Which is, time he gets to spend with his family. He might, I don't know his whole family setup, but he may be able to, just as an example, go to his daughter's wedding. So things like that is, obviously there's the company building piece and we have goals around that, but ultimately like the mission is just we want people to be healthier. And so if we can get to a point in 3 years' time where we've 100x the amount of people that we've been able to help, then that's like the ultimate goal, really.
I can completely relate to that. There's no money in the world that can buy you that feeling. It's just not possible. And I think it's super important for not just you as a founder, but your entire team to really see the result of the hard work that they put in every single day.
Yeah.
Because you're so right. Like, you just day to day, you're so busy in execution and you're doing something great for people and humanity and all that, and it's changing lives. But it just, again, comes down to Excel sheets and numbers and like what went wrong and, strategy sessions and whatever, like really that impact. I think that, and also like that alignment, we spoke about purpose before that as well. A lot of the people who join companies like yours also join because of sense of purpose.
Yeah, 100%.
There's a reason why they're in that company. So bringing them back, so, okay, this is why we do what we do. I think that just changes everything.
No, it's super important.
We all have to work. We spoke about this before, but like, that just, that is super powerful.
Yeah, completely. Our chief medical officer, he was actually one of the first guys to join the company right in the beginning when we started. So he's a sports physician and a medical doctor, and he like lives and breathes the stuff every single day, and like he was doing so before we joined, and that was a big part of the reason why he wanted to join me on this journey, because he's been helping people his whole life. And he understood that, by blending healthcare with some sort of technology components, the reach that you can have and the amount of people that you can help is obviously far greater than, a physician might be able to, the impact that a physician might be able to have in their own individual capacity, just seeing people one-to-one. So, and then we've kind of been able to maintain that culture internally where all the people that they joined because, you talk about purpose, like they see the benefit that we bring to people, and they just want to be a part of that. And it's amazing from a recruitment perspective, because you can go and speak to someone who's working at, I don't know, like Amazon as an example, getting paid a ton of money, but maybe doesn't really find a lot of fulfillment and meaning in their work. You can probably only pay them 1/5 of what they're getting paid, or a quarter of what they're getting paid. But if you can show them that what you're doing is really delivering value, tangible value, that they are going to be able to feel themselves, oftentimes they want to be a part of that. So
100%. Well, I wish you the best of luck, and your entire team the best of luck. I think you guys are doing a phenomenal. Thank you so much. You guys are doing a phenomenal work. I'm really passionate about this space, as you know. We should talk on this 100%. But wish you all the best. You've obviously come a long way, and this is a question that I ask all my guests who come on the pod. What would you tell that young Chris, who is in Cape Town, trying his hands on all different sports? What would you tell that kid today?
I think the whole sporting side of things, it's been interesting. I think it teaches people a lot of resilience, because if you're growing up and you're playing a lot of sport, you're facing a lot of adversity, it actually really does help from an entrepreneurial perspective. So I think if you are inclined to want to do your own thing, Not that you would know that at that young of an age. But I would definitely say, like, involve yourself in the world of sports and put yourself through some hardship, because it's going to train you to be able to deal with that kind of stuff when you embark on your entrepreneurial journey. So I'd say that's one thing. I think, I guess maybe the other thing would be, I think figure out a way to just find out what you are passionate about and just, put everything into it, whether that is sport. Fortunately, I found that outlet for me when I was very young, and just invest all your time and energy into it, because while that specific thing might not take you down the path of, where you eventually end up career-wise, it might expose you to things and life experiences that will benefit you down the line. So long as you invest in your time in the right things, though. The partying and stuff, like, I did a bunch of that when I was younger. I probably shouldn't have invested as much time at that. But I'd say if you're investing it in the right things, then it's definitely worth it.
Well, thank you so much, Chris.
Yeah, cool.
It was an absolute pleasure having you on the pod today. And like we said, we will definitely continue this conversation, and it'll be great to perhaps have you on the pod again and see how your plans progress in the future.
Thanks, Askip.
All the best.
Thank you.